When my wife told me she needed a younger, more exciting life, I thought she meant new hobbies, not a new partner. I never imagined who she'd leave me for. For 30 years, I believed I was living inside the kind of love story people dream about. Linda and I met when we were just 22. I was a quiet, hardworking guy trying to build a future. And she was this radiant force, confident, funny, and full of life. When she smiled, the world seemed a little less heavy. We built everything together from scratch. The house, the memories, the late-night talks that stretched until sunrise. We weren't rich, but we were happy, or at least I thought we were. Our small kitchen table had seen it all. Arguments, laughter, and the unspoken bond of two people who believed they were on the same team. Every Sunday morning, she'd hum while making pancakes, and I'd pretend to read the newspaper just so I could watch her move. Those were the kind of simple moments that made life feel complete. As the years passed, our kids grew up, moved out, and suddenly it was just us again. Two people in a quiet house, trying to remember what life looked like before parenthood took over. I thought we were entering the golden years, the calm after the storm of raising a family. I imagined vacations, gardening together, maybe even slow dances in the living room on rainy nights. But lately, something had shifted. It was subtle at first. The way she avoided eye contact during dinner, how her laughter seemed rehearsed, or how she'd disappear into her phone for hours, smiling at a screen that wasn't me. I'd ask, "Everything okay?" And she'd brush it off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I told myself it was just a phase. Maybe she was feeling lonely, or maybe I wasn't doing enough. So I tried harder. Surprised her with flowers, cooked dinner when she was tired, even planned a weekend getaway. She said all the right words. "Thank you, that means a lot." But her voice lacked warmth. There was this night, I remember it so clearly. We were watching a movie together. She laughed at something on screen, but the sound was hollow, like an echo in an empty room. I turned to her and for the first time, really looked. The woman sitting next to me wasn't the same Linda I married. She looked distant, like her body was there, but her heart had already gone somewhere else. Still, I convinced myself love was enough, that if I kept being the husband she fell for, she'd come back to me emotionally. I didn't realize then that love can't compete with restlessness, or the hunger to feel something new. Looking back now, I can see it. The cracks were already showing. I was just too blinded by hope to notice the walls collapsing around me. After that night, the silence between us began to grow louder than our conversations. It wasn't the kind of silence that feels peaceful. It was heavy, awkward, almost suffocating. Linda had started spending more time outside the house, meeting friends, she said, just catching up. At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? After 30 years of marriage, you don't expect to doubt the person you've trusted with your whole life. But soon, the patterns became impossible to ignore. She'd come home late, smelling like new perfume. Something I hadn't smelled before. Her hair perfectly styled, her lipstick freshly done, even at midnight. When I'd ask how her evening went, she'd answer quickly and change the subject. I could feel her building walls, one small excuse at a time. The little things started to vanish too. The goodnight kisses, the morning coffee she used to make for us, the random texts in the middle of the day saying, "Miss you." Now, she barely looked up from her phone. Sometimes I'd catch her smiling at a message, then quickly locking the screen when she saw me looking. I'd ask, "Who's that?" And she'd reply, "Oh, just a friend from the gym." But Linda hadn't been to the gym in years. I wanted to confront her, demand the truth. But I didn't. I was terrified of what that truth might be. So instead, I pretended not to notice. I thought if I gave her space, maybe she'd come back to me on her own. One evening, as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, I finally broke the silence. "Are you happy, Linda?" I asked. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding. She looked at me for a long time, her eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Guilt, confusion, maybe both. Then she said softly, "I feel stuck, Mark. I need something more. Exciting. I need to feel alive again." I just sat there, frozen. 30 years together. And I was hearing that she didn't feel alive anymore. That night I realized, love doesn't always fade with anger. Sometimes it disappears quietly, replaced by a hunger you can't compete with. A week after that conversation, everything changed. It was a Thursday evening. I came home early from work, hoping maybe we could talk things out. Maybe find a way to fix what was left. But when I walked through the door, I saw her suitcase by the hallway. Open, half-packed. My heart dropped. "Are you going somewhere?" I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't look at me. She just kept folding her clothes carefully, like every shirt was an escape plan. "I'm leaving, Mark," she said softly. "I can't do this anymore." I stood there, numb. The kind of numb that doesn't let you cry or shout. Just silence. "For how long?" I managed to ask. She paused. "I don't know. Maybe forever." I waited for her to tell me there was someone else. Because deep down, I already knew. You can feel it when someone's heart doesn't belong to you anymore. But I wasn't prepared for the name that left her lips next. "It's Claire." I blinked. "Claire, as in your best friend, Claire?" She nodded. Tears filled her eyes, but her face was calm, almost relieved. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Mark. It just did." For years, Claire had been a part of our lives. Family dinners, birthdays, holidays. I'd always liked her. She was kind, funny, and she made Linda laugh. I just never realized she was making Linda feel alive in the way I no longer could. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just stood there, watching the woman I built my life with close her suitcase and walk toward the door. Before she left, she turned back once and said, "I'm sorry, Mark. You're a good man, but I can't pretend anymore." The door closed softly behind her, and with it 30 years of love, promises, and memories disappeared into the sound of her car driving away. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the living room, staring at the empty chair across from me. The one that used to hold my forever. After she left, the house felt like a museum of memories I didn't want to visit. Every room whispered her name. Her coffee cup still sat by the sink. Her perfume lingered in the hallway. Even the dent on her pillow beside mine reminded me she used to exist there. Beside me. Inside a life we built together. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. out of habit, make 2 cups of coffee, then pour one down the sink. The silence was brutal. It wasn't just quiet, it was empty. People tried to comfort me. "Mark," she made her choice. "Move on." But how do you move on from 30 years of shared birthdays, hospital visits, Sunday mornings, and inside jokes? It wasn't just love I'd lost. It was a piece of my identity. For weeks, I replayed every moment, wondering where I went wrong. Was it me? Did I stop making her feel special? Did I become too predictable? Too safe? Or maybe I'd been loving her the way she used to be, not the person she'd become. Nights were the hardest. I'd sit in the dark, scrolling through old pictures, vacations, anniversaries, her smiling face pressed against mine. And then I'd see Claire, always in the background, always close. I hadn't noticed the way they looked at each other back then. Not until now. Some nights, I'd imagine her and Claire together, laughing somewhere new, planning a life I wasn't part of. The thought tore through me like glass. One evening, I went into our bedroom and found her wedding ring sitting on the dresser. She hadn't even taken it with her. That broke me, because it wasn't just a ring, it was a promise, and she'd left it behind like it meant nothing. That night I cried, really cried, for the first time in years. Not just for her, but for the man I used to be when she still loved me. The truth was clear now. She didn't just leave me. She left the version of herself that once believed in us. Time doesn't heal everything, but it dulls the sharpest edges. Months passed, and slowly, the pain shifted from unbearable to something I could live with. I stopped waiting for her text or the sound of her car in the driveway. One morning I woke up and realized I hadn't dreamt of her that night. It was small, but it felt like progress. The house was still quiet, but the silence didn't sting as much anymore. I started filling it with new sounds, the crackle of vinyl records, the hum of a paintbrush against canvas. I hadn't painted in decades, but it came back to me, like muscle memory waiting to breathe again. At first, every painting somehow looked like her. Soft lines, warm tones, familiar curves. But as time went on, the colors changed. They grew brighter, freer. I wasn't painting her anymore. I was painting me. One afternoon, I found her wedding ring again, still sitting where she'd left it, on the dresser, untouched. I held it in my hand, expecting to feel anger or grief, but I didn't. Instead, I felt gratitude. Because that ring, once a symbol of forever, had become something else. A reminder that even love that ends can still mean something. It had shaped me, broken me, and in its own way, rebuilt me. Friends started inviting me out again. I said yes for the first time. I laughed again. Real laughter. Not the kind that hides pain. Linda had chased excitement. Maybe she found it. But I found something different. Peace. Sometimes love doesn't die. It just changes form. It stops being about us and starts being about me, about learning to live again without needing someone else to make it worthwhile. I'll always miss the woman she was, but I've learned to love the man I'm becoming. And maybe, just maybe, that's what healing really is. Not forgetting the past, but forgiving it. Sometimes the people we love most are only meant to walk beside us for part of the journey. Linda's chapter in my life ended, but mine didn't. It simply turned a page. If you've ever been left behind, remember, endings aren't failures. They're invitations to begin again. Subscribe for more true stories that heal, hurt, and remind us we're not alone. Leave a like if the story touched your heart. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if the person you loved simply stopped choosing you?